So the overall point of today's video is essentially take your recoil from this craziness to being able to shoot straight, where it pretty much looks like you don't have that much recoil. It usually comes down to a few simple steps, which we're gonna cover. First off, you wanna go ahead and get your settings situated, and you can edit your button layout. You can go ahead and use flip default, tactical, whatever you're normally comfortable with. You can carry that over. If you don't really have any specific preference, default's probably fine. If you wanna go ahead and drop shot a little bit with R3, tactical is an easy way to go. And if you want to bunny hop, you can always go the bumper jumper tactical. If you want to do both, you can go ahead and combine those. Or if you want to make your own, you can go ahead and just do custom alternative and you can go that route. I usually flip my triggers so I can aim down sight with L1 and R1, which simplify it, at least for me, when I wanted to use semi-auto weapons. I usually turn vibration off, so when I get shot, it's not like my controller is shaking. Some people like that. That's up to you. Trigger effect, I turn that off. Haptic feedback on PS5 controllers is a thing, and then your sensitivity is really what you want to get dialed in. And normally you want to find a number where you can have complete control of where your crosshairs are. So when I come through, I want my crosshairs, let's say in this little section right here between this wall and where this car is. If you can't consistently do that, then your sensitivity is either too high, so you can see I get there pretty quickly as I come around. It might be a hair too fast. Maybe I wanted to go to 5, but generally that's what you're looking for. You can go ahead and come through here. If this window was open, I come through, there's a window there. I can go there. And you kind of want to be able to have full control over where your crosshair placement is so that when you're lined up, that you're not over here for a guy that's in this section. Because let's say your crosshairs are up here, then you need to adjust and drag down, which is a slow process. So what you're going to do is make sure that when you're coming around, if that's where people are going to be, you're going to have your crosshairs generally in this area so that when they come around, you can just ADS directly and it'll be very fast for you to get on target. So you can see right there, I have pretty good control. If I want to go ahead and look at this door, this door, this door, and you can kind of run through. And you can even go on this specific map, and if you want to do like a specific crosshair placement, you can kind of run around and boom, there you go. And if, let's say, this wasn't a good setting for me, maybe I had it much higher, then it might be a little bit trickier that I'm not used to it. It's going to be overshooting or undershooting where it can kind of be an issue. I use Kontrol Freeks to help out with this too, so maybe you can go a little bit higher sense. But it's going to depend on preference. So first you want to dial that in where you have good control over your hip fire. So if you were hip firing, you'd be pretty accurate if you had a dot crosshair, and you can kind of go through that route and you can do that. So this is a little bit too fast for me. You'll find what works. Normally it's gonna be between 4 and 9. If you go above that, that's normally if you're using like quick scoping or something like that. So that is the starting point. On top of that, once you kind of got a good dialed in spot, you can actually just use a 1x multiplier or lower it like I've done. So what happens is I get on target, and then when I aim down sight, it slows down. So it doesn't have a long, it doesn't move that fast, right? So you're going to have control over that. And you can do the same thing in a private match where you're going around. And then what this also does is it going to make it so that you get real sticky aim, which we'll talk a little bit about. That's very important with controller aim assist to be able to, that you get that real good, almost lock on, not necessarily a lock on, but it can feel like it in some cases, especially with the muzzle flash that goes on, shakes the gun. It can be a little tricky. And to make sure you have the right aim assist settings on, you want target aim assist on. You want aim assist set to default or black ops. Avoid precision or focusing unless you really like that one, because those two do not have rotational aim assist, which is the most important part. You can go ahead and keep it at default, which is standard, or you can go ahead and try out dynamic, which is what I prefer. And I think a lot of people are kind of transitioning to that. And then linear is there as well. This one really comes, that one, not a huge difference. And then you can kind of come down instant, custom presume, and then the part where you really got to be aware of is the dead zones. So if I put these dead zones to 0, you can see that my crosshairs move just a little bit. This is a 6-month-old controller. It doesn't have a ton of dead zone, and you'll see that when I go up, I can actually remove this entirely on my right stick. If I just move this up a couple ticks, you can see it doesn't even move. Like, It could probably go one more because the dead zone's so good on the controller that you can go there. And your movement one, you can go ahead and keep it low as well. You can see I'm not strafing or moving on my own. So there's almost no dead zone on this controller. And you normally want to have that dialed down as low as possible. If you're getting up in the range around 10, you might want to go ahead and switch it up a little bit because that can be an issue. So one of the most important parts when it's come to recent Call of Duties is there's such a thing as predictive recoil. And what this means is if I shoot at the same distance, the recoil pattern is very likely to do the exact same thing over and over and over again. We can see it a little bit better on this door. And what you'll notice is pretty much it does the same thing every single time. Goes up a little bit of more of an S curve, and you kind of have it that way. So if I want to control it, basically what you got to do is do the opposite of that, which would mean pull down and then pull down to the left as you adjust. So pull down in the right and then pull down into the left. And it looks like you got almost no recoil, and you can kind of see how they line up there. It took me a little second to get dialed in, but once you get it, that's essentially how it would work. So I recommend doing that with whatever build you have. If you feel like, okay, this is where the recoil sits. If it's like all Zorro-y, then it's like, probably got to put on some attachments for recoil. Otherwise, you can go ahead and leave it alone if you feel like you can be accurate with that individual pattern. Keeping in mind that as targets get further away, it'll be a little bit more challenging. The other thing you can do is your gun will always reset to center no matter when you stop pulling the trigger. So right here where these meet up, if I pull the trigger stop, you'll see it go up. And if I let go, it always goes back to center. Even though I fired 13 bullets, if I do it again, it goes back to center. And that's one pattern that we've had ever since Modern Warfare, where the gun resets to center. Some guns do it a little bit faster than others, but keeping in mind that if you have a gun where maybe this first recoil pattern is super easy for you to control, but the second one's hard, what you would do is pull down, let go, and pull down, let go, pull down. And you could see that it's super easy to control this pattern because all I'm doing is adjusting for this first half of the recoil pattern, and I don't have to worry about the adjustment, which is much easier on keyboard and mouse when your aim goes in a different direction. So you got to be aware of that aspect. So another important part is finding your zero, and each weapon's going to have this. And what this means is that you're going to pull down a fixed amount where it perfectly counters the recoil's vertical movement. And we can see this with different guns. So for example, if we look at the recoil of this particular gun, we'll kind of see how it goes up. Mostly goes up a little bit to the left. But what's going to happen is what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull down the fixed amount where it kind of stays in the same spot. Now that we found our zero, we can easily aim vertical, left, right, and it'll always stay in the same spot. And this is one of the hard parts that you got to realize as a controller player, is that you're really finding that sweet spot where it's going to kind of stay in the same spot. And then once it's not moving, at least not for the most part, what you're going to do is make adjustments based off of that. So if, let's say, somebody was coming around over here, what would happen is I could go ahead and trace here. And if I wanted to trace over here, I could literally trace with still being able to control the recoil. And that's what you're going to be able to do with several different weapons. So regardless if you're using the AK-47, the M4, once you understand that initial recoil pattern, you know this goes up and to the right. So all you have to do is find that zero, which will be like this. It'll be like you have stick drift almost. And you just stop there, right? On the controller, you're only holding that little bit down and to the left. And what'll end up happening is that you don't even need to look. Like, you can even close your eyes and you can kind of have it there where it's zeroed in and you're good to go. And that's where you're going to have that sweet spot where you'll be able to hold down the trigger, and then essentially you'll be able to aim whichever direction you want, and it will be like the gun doesn't have any recoil. And that is one of the biggest secrets when it comes to controlling your aim effectively with pretty much any gun, since most recoil patterns in COD are either straight down to the left, straight down vertical, or straight down and to the right. And that's really all you got to master. And for the most part, if your sensitivity is dialed in, your ADS sensitivity is dialed in, you're going to be able to hit beams pretty much no matter how far the distance is. Then you'll just have to account for bullet drop or whatever the case is. So like I said, I would talk a little bit about aim assist. You always want to make sure there's movement on your left analog stick or your movement stick. And that the reason for that is because that activates rotational aim assist. Even if you're against the wall, you want to make sure that you're using the analog in one direction. If you're going to go ahead and strafe to the left, you're going to want to make sure that you're either rotate it forward or backwards. So there's always a movement input on the controller. And this is to guarantee that you're always getting rotational aim assist. So no matter what the situation is, you'll be able to get the rotational aim assist as they come around on an enemy. You'll see it kind of sticks to the enemy. No matter how far I am away, it'll kind of rotate and kind of stay on the enemy. And this isn't by accident. This is rotational aim assist. When you combine that with rotational slowdown, you're going to get what would be more like a sticky aim. It'll stay on the target. It'll help you to track, and it'll allow you to go ahead and rotate through. And this is regardless if you're in the hip fire or aim down sight. You always want an input on your left analog stick. If you aren't doing that, you are doing it wrong. The other part of strafing, this is just a side note, if you are partly off a target, barely off, this is something you can do to strafe back onto target. Instead of moving your right analog, you can just strafe towards the target, because the micro adjustment from left to right will be a little bit smaller than you actually moving your right analog, even if you have the right proper sensitivity. Once you feel like you've gotten to the right spot with all the various settings, you can go ahead and practice this with bots on a regular basis until you feel comfortable enough with your aim to just go into regular matches. That could be something as small as 10 minutes, or you can go ahead and kill like 500 bots. You can go ahead and adjust those things within the game. Go to game setup. We can actually adjust it with the bots. So we'll go ahead and add more bots. However many bots we need. We'll go ahead and put that on recruit, because the whole point of this is to see how accurate we can be, how many bots you can kill within one mag of the specific weapon you're testing. You can change the rules. So if you want higher point limit, unlimited, and however long it takes you to kill 1,000 bots or 500 bots or whatever the case is, and then you just get going that way, and it ends up being pretty straightforward. You can also make it so that you can increase your spawn ammo so you have max ammo, and then on top of that, you can make it so it's radar always on, so you know exactly where the enemies are. The whole point of this is to make sure your accuracy is dialed in, whether you want to run around hip firing or you want to aim down sight and make sure you're there. If you're not really accurate with bots, you can't expect to be super accurate when you get into a full game with real players. So this is gonna be with the cast of, and we're gonna run around and we can see where the AI are. And what we're gonna do is make sure our sending's good. We got one enemy here. We can go ahead and aim down. We got perfect shots there. It took 6 bullets to kill them. I don't know how many I missed or how many I overkilled. There's another one further down here. You can see where I put the crosshairs. There's another one in the mid. I come through. They're peeking through. Get him done. Come through. That was a headshot. We're gonna peek through. Line up this shot. We're looking at the mini map constantly. We're going to be able to line this up. We're centered on the target. There's another guy coming around over here. We're going to beam around. Get good aim there. Obviously, this is a comfortable. I was able to kill how many bots? 6 bots with 1 mag before I had to reload. And you just come through, and that's really what you're trying to do. And you can do extended mags if you want to practice with that. But the whole purpose of the exercise is, do you have the right controller settings, right? Are you not missing shots? Or are you missing shots and you need to make adjustments based off of that? You can see the range I'm able to take out the bots, get all my full set of streaks, and this gives you like a really good practice where you're looking at the minimap, crosshair placement, we take them out, we come through, we get the next one, and you can do this for as many bots as you want, or like I said, you can set a fixed time where you can do 10 minutes or whatever the case is. And this is something professional players do on a regular basis when they're warming up at the start of their streams or whatever the case is, where they kill like 200, 300, 400 bots, where they're really getting that muscle memory in, because it's not gonna happen in one attempt, all of a sudden it's magic. You have to put in work if you expect to improve at something, and this is no different. Obviously, a video game, you wanna have fun, but the reason you're here is obviously because you wanna improve. So try those things out for yourself. Appreciate all the support on the content. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.